Tall as the sea kings of old, he stood above all that were near. Ancient of days he seemed, and yet in the flower of manhood. And wisdom sat upon his brow, and strength and healing were in his hands, and delight was about him. Welcome to Tales Vada, where we discuss and explore Middle-earth. Following our Dunedain Ranger video, we will explore the great chieftain of the Dunedain, reuniter of Arnor of Gondor. Aragorn Elessar was born on the 1st of March 2931 in the wilderness of Eridor. His father, Aragorn II, was the son of Arador, who was the chieftain of the Dunedain before Aragorn's birth. Aragorn's mother, Gilrain, was the daughter of Dilhel and Eowen. At Aragorn's birth, Eowen prophesied that Aragorn would wear a green stone. Later in his life, he was given the Elessar stone from Galadriel. From this, his royal name Elessar would come. When Aragorn was only 2 years old, his father, Arathorn, was killed by orcs. As was the tradition of the Dunedain, Aragorn was fostered in Rivendell by Elrond. His identity was kept a secret. Aragorn was named Estelle, meaning hope, in Sindarin. Aragorn grew up with the Elladan and Erohil, and with these two elves he journeyed far beyond Rivendell. Elrond saw that Estelle was coming to manhood early. When Aragorn returned from a journey with the twin sons of Elrond, Elrond decided to reveal the truth to Estelle, and so Elrond gave Aragorn the heirlooms of his house, and only withheld the scepter of Annúminas, telling Aragorn he must earn it first. Aragorn, surprised but not ungrateful, walked out into the forest and sang the lay of Laithien. There he stumbled upon Arwen, who was returning from her visit to Lothlorien. Aragorn was full of hope, and he mistook her for Lúthien, of whom he had been singing of. Once Arwen introduced herself, they fell in love. Soon he took up his role as chieftain of the Dunedain. At some time he left Eridor and travelled south. There he served Thengel, father of Théoden. Later he came to Gondor. There he called himself Thorongil and helped Ethalean, father of Denethor, in the Stewart's struggle against invaders. Thorongil was much loved by the people of Gondor. Ethalean respected Thorongil, but knew nothing of his lineage. Denethor, the Steward's son, suspected Thorongil to be a descendant of a Isildur, though he was the only one. Near the end of his stay, Thorongil took a small party south. At night, he ambushed a fleet of corsairs, slaughtering them. Thorongil burnt their ships and scattered their armies that were going to attack Gondor. Ethalean, hoping for Thorongil to stay permanently in Gondor, asked him to come to Minas Tirith. Instead, Aragorn told Ethalean that other tasks awaited him. Returning from Gondor, Aragorn led his rangers, protecting the Shire and other lands. During one of his visits to Rivendell, he met Gandalf the Grey, and they became good friends. On one of his unknown journeys in 2980, he arrived in Lothlorien. Arwen was also there, visiting her grandmother Galadriel. Galadriel gave Aragorn new elven clothes. There he met Arwen on Caras Galadhon. For one season they wandered together in Lothlorien. At midsummer he gave her the Ring of Barahir, and Arwen pledged her hand to him in marriage. Elrond gave his foster son permission to marry his daughter, on one condition, that he must first become the king of both Gondor and Arnor. In the year 3001, as a new revealed Sauron continued to regain power in Mordor, Aragorn began assisting Gandalf in his search for news of Gollum. In 307, he briefly returned to Eriador, where he visited his mother for the last time. Aragorn returned to Bree and the Shire afterwards. There he met with Gandalf. Gandalf told Aragorn that he must go hastily on another adventure. This time he must search for Gollum, who was formerly known as Smeagol. The reason the capture of this creature was necessary was because Gollum was the former owner of the One Ring. This was important because he was overly protective of it, and now he was searching for it. When Bilbo Baggins encountered Gollum in his cave, the hobbit picked it up. But Bilbo had revealed his name and where he was from to Gollum. Therefore, now Gollum knew the location of the ring. If Sauron found the location of the ring, things would have gone ill. Thus, in 309 of the Third Age, Aragorn set out on the hunt for Gollum. Aragorn searched in the Vales of Anduin, Mirkwood, and Rhovanion, and even to the confines of Mordor. At that time, Gollum had ventured into Mordor and was captured by Sauron. Gollum was tortured and finally revealed the location of the ring and the bearer. After 8 years, Gollum was finally released, and this is when Aragorn overtook him in the Dead Marshes. With Gollum, Aragorn travelled through the northern Emyn Muil to prevent being seen by Sauron's spies. Then he crossed the Anduin at Sarn Gabir. Aragorn travelled further north, along the edges of Fangorn Forest, and then through Lothlorien, where the elves sent a message to Gandalf. Then Aragorn travelled alongside the Anduin to the north until he arrived at Carrock. With the aid of the Beorings, Aragorn crossed the Anduin with Gollum and entered Mirkwood. There he gave Gollum to Thranduil to be held captive. He then returned west and met Gandalf at Sarn Ford, and learnt of Frodo's plan to leave the Shire. Aragorn then continued on his own journey. When Aragorn returned to this area, he was told by Gildor in Gorlion about the Black Riders and the missing of Gandalf. Aragorn and his rangers kept close watch, waiting for any signs of Frodo leaving Buckland. While in Bree, Aragorn crossed paths with the 4 hobbits in the Prancing Pony. Aragorn, or Strider, as he was known there, watched as Frodo slipped on the ring and disappeared. Annoyed at Frodo's foolish act, he arranged the 4 hobbits to stay in a different room for the night. He warned them about the Black Riders and requested to be their guide. After reading Gandalf's letter that he had left at Bree, Frodo accepted Aragorn as their guide. Aragorn led Frodo and his companions east in the direction of Rivendell. On the way, Aragorn told many stories concerning the First Age. After the ambush on Weathertop and the wounding of Frodo, Aragorn met Glorfindel, a friend of his, and thanks to the power of Vilya and Narya, Frodo arrived in Rivendell, where Elrond, half-elven, healed him. At the Council of Elrond, Aragorn played an active role in the discussions and became a member of the Fellowship of the Ring. As preparation for the journey, the elves of Rivendell reforged the shards of Narsil into Andúril, the Flame of the West. Aragorn's intentions were to travel with the company for a while before making his way to Gondor. Aragorn encouraged the taking of the Red Horn Pass, which ended in disaster. He was reluctant to pass through Moria, for he had great foresight. Indeed, Gandalf fell into the abyss with Durin's Bane. Aragorn was elected leader of the company. He led the company to Lothlorien, where they spent many weeks. At their departure, Galadriel offered many gifts to the Fellowship. She gave Aragorn the Elessar stone, fulfilling his grandmother's prophecy. The Fellowship took elven boats down Lothlorien and into the river Anduin. On reaching the falls of Raros, the Fellowship was ambushed on Amon-Hen by Saruman's Uruk-hai. Aragorn fought bravely, but the Uruks overwhelmed him and stopped him from coming to Boromir's aid. Soon after the retreat of the Uruks, Aragorn found Boromir sitting against a tree with black feathers sticking out of his body. Boromir, before he died, told Aragorn of the capture of the hobbits. Deciding to let Frodo and Sam continue on their own journey, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli became the free hunters, running along the plains of Rohan, tracking the Uruks who had taken Merry and Pippin. In Rohan, they stumbled upon Eomer and his horsemen who had just slain the Uruks. They were given the horses Arod and Hasufel from Eomer. After coming to the edge of Fangorn, they tracked Merry and Pippin as the hobbits were taken by Treebeard. In Fangorn they met the re-embodied Gandalf the White. Together they rode to Edoras, the capital of Rohan. Théoden, king of Rohan, had been controlled by Saruman, and so Rohan was weak. Gandalf released Théoden from Saruman's control. After some discussion, the people of Edoras joined the refugees of the Westfold in Helm's Deep. As night fell, thousands of Uruk-hai approached the fortress. Aragorn fought until dawn. When Gandalf came riding with Erkenbrand, the Uruks were defeated. After Pippin gazed into the Orthanc stone, Gandalf presented it to Aragorn, its rightful master. Gandalf and Pippin rode to Minas Tirith to warn Denethor of the attack. Aragorn rode with Théoden for some time before meeting up with his friends Halbarad, Elladan and Erohil, and a company of fearless rangers. Elrond's sons gave him a message from Elrond telling him to go through the paths of the dead. A little while later Aragorn took his companions and the rangers into the paths of the dead. The grey company passed through the dark door and Dwimmerberg and came at last to the Stone of Eric. Aragorn, summoning the dead, commanded them to fulfill their prophecy, and they did, by ambushing and attacking the corsairs of Umbar that were docked at Pelargir, driving them away. The company took the corsair ships to the Pelennor fields, where by their aid the battle was won. Still, Aragorn would not enter the city to not cause strife with Denethor. Instead, Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth entered Minas Tirith and discovered the news of Denethor's death. Imrahil wondered if Aragorn should come into the city, but Aragorn had come in disguise into the houses of healing, where he healed Merry, Eowyn and Faramir. After the leaders of the remaining three peoples discussed the diversion, Aragorn led the host to the Black Gate. After the terms of surrender were utterly discarded, Aragorn charged his host and the battle began. This diversion was effective for Frodo, Sam and Gollum to end the ring. Aragorn was crowned King Elessar of the reunited realms of Gondor and Arnor. Elrond kept his promise, and Aragorn and Arwen were wed. In the Fourth Age they had many children, including their son Eldarin. Aragorn, and King Eomer went on many journeys, defeating the last of evil in Middle-earth. For their aid in the War of the Ring, Aragorn granted the Druidain forest to belong to the Druidain. King Elessar and Gimli Elfriend even found the first Elendilmere in Orthanc. Aragorn restored the Great Council of Gondor and the Oath of Cirion and El. He died at the age of 210 in 120 of the Fourth Age. Aragorn was truly a great warrior, one of the last descendants of Numenor. Thank you for getting to the end of this long video. Please like and subscribe.